Atticus Wine. I also make the wine with the support of a wonderful group of people.
And I'm Guy, I'm the other half of Atticus Wine, and welcome to our home and to Atticus Vineyard, which is right here to my right. Planted in 2005, so 15 years ago now. We have about 6 acres planted in all, just over 4 from back then in 2005. And that is 2/3 of that is Pommard clone, the subvarietal of Pinot Noir. And at each end we have Dijon clones, 667 and 777, and we'll talk about a bit of those in the lineup today. And looks like we're doing a vertical today. And what are we drinking?
So yes, we are offering a different vertical this month of June. We are focusing on our Atticus Vineyard label. The Atticus label is very special to us. It's a blend that we put together every year. We select 4 or 5 barrels that really showcase the personality of our vineyard and of the vintage. It consists of just 4 or 5 barrels. We're looking for more depth and more structure in the wines. And the first wine that we're going to try is the 2012 Atticus Vineyard. If you have any of these wines, we're going to be tasting the 12, the 13, and the 14. We encourage you to taste along with us and to send us your comments. If you don't have any of these wines, you can also purchase them at our website or by contacting me.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
I love the colour.
Yes.
Yeah, really a dark colour compared to many vintages. This is obviously going to be a warmer year, presumably.
Yes. So the 12 vintage was one of our warm vintages, definitely. We had a warm growing season, and the wines that were produced had a lot of just natural concentration and intensity. So we picked early October, and now this particular blend is about 80% of our Dijon clone, which really shined that year.
In the warmer year.
Yeah, what are you getting?
No, I really like this. It's showing really well. It's got lots of dark fruit. Still, when this wine first came out, there's a lot of fruit forward aspect to it, but it's still doing that all these years later. And it's still got some acidity and structure, but really it's all about the fruit. It's a wine which is a real sipper. For me, you can just sip this and just enjoy the different dark fruit flavors coming through there. What sort of fruits do you get?
So the first impact is like dark cherries, but I also get the plums that are so typical from our vineyard. I get it both on the nose and on the palate. I get a little bit of black tea, which is also something typical, but maybe like dark chocolate. I got a little bit of dark chocolate.
Yeah, this would be lovely with, this
is
is
minerality.
Yes, and that would lead me to the point I was going to make, which was it'd be great with food, or by itself, or with cheese. For me, this kind of wine is really nice with like a Gruyere or an Emmental or one of those dry cheeses. Because it has that minerality matches so well,
great with that.
And the fruit forward aspect with the dry cheese is also very good.
Well, I think like with the how sometimes Gruyere you get that saltiness from it, and the texture. The texture in this wine, by the way, it's so smooth and velvety.
Yeah, it has certainly medium mouthfeel. I don't think it's too big. I think it's nicely balanced on that basis. It's a wine which you can keep coming back to, and it's very tasty.
But for sure, drink it at cellar temperature. Right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think for the wines from warmer years, it's going to make a lot of sense to drink them at cellar temperature rather than room temperature. Is going to present better on that basis.
Yeah, it's just so smooth. It's drinking beautifully. Okay,
What's next?
The 13. So the 13 is sort of very near and close to my heart because we had to work really hard at it in the cellar. The 13 was also a relatively, warmer growing season. It was, from a growing degree day perspective, it was actually warmer than 12, which is surprising, but we weren't quite ready to pick. And we were facing all of this, the prospect of a lot of rain and cooler weather. As you may recall, we ended up leaving that weekend from the house because we didn't want to stick around and see our vineyard being hit by many, many inches of rain.
Yeah, we could sit and worry, or we could go and take a couple of days off, and we took a couple of days off.
But we made the right decision. So we waited for the rain to come through. We had a little bit of time to dry the grapes.
Yeah, if I recall, there was bad rain, but then there was a number of days afterwards which were dry, allowed things to come back together again. And you can see immediately, color-wise,
They're so different.
there isn't the depth of color that you get on the 12. It's a much lighter, more elegant color profile, and on the nose immediately there's that reflection as well. It's
the
more,
nose is delicious.
yeah, it's more. There's more nuance and layers and elegance, if you like, about this wine.
I love the aromatics in it. So I get raspberries, forest floor, I get floral notes, cigar box. There's just so much. There's just a lot in the notes of this wine.
It's a very pretty wine, and if you're having both of these in one evening, and I don't see why you shouldn't, you definitely want to start with the 13 because it has the lightness, the elegance, the layers, the subtlety, all the flavors you're talking about here. A medium to light mouthfeel.
It's definitely lighter. It's so juicy.
Yeah, but the 12 would follow it very well because it picks up some of the themes which are prevalent and recognizable in our vineyard, and then takes them to a different level with that dark fruit that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I love it. As I say, you know, it's amazing because it's from the 13 vintage, but it's still so bright. It still has really a wonderful acid vein to it. This is definitely more of a food wine, although I could just sit here and smell this all afternoon. I think it would go really beautifully with like a French onion tart, or maybe like a mushroom tart, you know, wild mushrooms.
Yeah, this and mushrooms, absolutely.
Yeah, it would just go beautifully.
Yeah, no, that's right. And it's because of that structure and acidity, which is much more prevalent than in the 12, and it has that food-friendly aspect to it on that basis.
Yeah, but I remember that vintage just so well because it was just,
where did we go? Do you remember? I don't remember when.
Yeah, Luke had a soccer tournament, so I wasn't meant to go, but in the end, we all took off. Yeah, and we had also tons of rain at the soccer tournament. So yeah, but
that's
anyway.
Common occurrence.
Yes. Let's see. So the last one that we are going to taste is the 14 Atticus Vineyard. Although I want to say something that I forgot to mention, which is also like, I think, you know, not only were the vintages very different.
Shall I call while you talk?
Sure. But the 13 vintage, we ended up not using a lot of new oak. And so the 13 was raised primarily in neutral oak, and it was primarily driven by the Pommard as opposed to the Dijon clones in the 12. You know, so
yeah, I was going to say, I mentioned the clones in the beginning. Can you talk a bit to the balance? So we talked about 80-20 in the 12.
Yeah, so this has
80 Dijon
and 20 Pommard, whereas our 13 has 60% Pommard and 40% Dijon clone. And, you know, the Pommard manifests itself generally, you know, it's the workhorse. I hate referring to it that way, but it's just always such an important element of the structure of our wines. But what I love about it is the really pretty floral qualities that it can bring to the wine, whereas the Dijon clones tend to be darker, they're more showy, a little bit more broody. And so it's always nice vintage on vintage. For us that make such little amount of wine, it's important, the clonal selection.
On a cooler year, or to be fair, we didn't, not a degree day cooler year, but certainly when the fall is cooler or some rain events, the Pommard is gonna shine through more, if you like, and it's gonna be more reminiscent of Pommard, the area, the Burgundy kind of style of wine, if you like, because it has that more austere aspect to it. But I think because there's the Dijon clones in there as well, it has those nice fruit elements to make it distinctively Oregonian.
Yeah, it's.
So the 14?
Yeah, I'm sorry. As you were talking still about the Pommard, I was starting to smell the 14. So the 14 was another warm vintage. It was probably one of the warmest that we've had, with lots of 100-degree days.
Yeah, and we're getting back to those dark, you can tell immediately from the colour of the wine that it's going to be a darker year. The middle one has that more elegant red spectrum of the colour, and the two at each end both have the darker, more
it's a deeper color,
more plummy kind of look to it.
Yeah. So first, just tell me what you smell.
On the nose.
Yeah, tell me what you think.
Well, I think you go back to some of the stuff you have in the 12 here. You get the dark fruits in the nose. I see it in some of the blue fruit spectrum. I get a lot of those plums that we've been talking about earlier. Definitely some of those sweet spices. Very prevalent on the nose here. Very pretty.
So the 14 was also an 80% Dijon blend and 20%.
So we're back to the same blend as the 12.
But I find it's like darker and more serious than the 12. I get more earthiness than in the 12.
Yes.
I get that black tea again. More than sweet spices, I get more like Asian spices. There's a bit of a savory element to it, and I get the plums and more like a black currant.
Well, I always find there's a sort of black currant, sort of cassis element to our wines. There's a vein of them, and I think that you're right. The 14s have all sorts of layers of flavors, and I think that's what is interesting about it. It has a beautiful balance to it in terms of it's that dark wine again, but it has more structure, more balance to it.
It has more structure for sure than the 12, but it's so smooth as well. The texture is beautiful.
Yeah, the tannins have really refined over time.
They're sort of like melted tannins. I think that this is also something to pair with a dish that has a little bit darker flavors. This would be great. One of my favorite dishes from the northern part of Peru, where my father is from, is seco, right? It's this like a stew, like a brace that you make. We tend to make it with lamb shanks, and it has a very, very light cilantro sauce, and I think this would go really nicely with that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that would go well with that. But it's going to go well with a pork or lamb dish as well, because it has enough to balance that out, and not be overawed by it by any manner of means, and really balance it nicely. I would probably finish of these three with a 12, but it's a toss up because
it's because the 12 has that little hint of sweetness.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas the 14 is more serious.
So perhaps first course with this one, main course with this one, and cheese with the last one. That's probably the answer.
Yeah, the 12 is lovely. It's so fun to smell these side by side.
And it's remarkable how each of the vintages is so different. These are three vintages from right out here, and you can tell they're from the same vineyard. There's no doubt as you taste through them that there's elements of flavour that are continuous through all three of them, but they're just vastly different wines. As I say, the 12 and the 14 have more similarities, but they're also very different. They have quite a lot of similarity on the nose, but as soon as you taste on the palate, the 12 is all about the fruit, and the 14 is all about the balance with the acidity and the structure of the fruit, and as you're saying, the sort of some of the dark elements of the fruits there. And the 13 is just so elegant and beautiful, layers, subtlety, and elegance. It's a really pretty wine.
Yeah, and they're all drinking beautifully. They're all drinking
showing
really,
well right now.
really well
Absolutely.
right now. Yeah. So that's exciting. You know, we're still, as we said before, our vineyard is 15 years old, but we're still, every year is a new vintage, a new year of learning, and we're still learning about how much we can push and the ultimate potential of our wines. But it's very encouraging to see that all three of these are so alive, especially, you know, like the 12, which would have been a lower acid, higher pH year in general. So it's really fun. But the 13, I could just bottle it for perfume. It just smells so good.
We should wrap up before these people leave us.
Okay. So once again, if you're interested in tasting any of these wines and you don't have them, we have them available at our website, and or you can purchase them through me. And it's been fun tasting with you.
Cheers. Cheers.